when we sit with parents and kids, and I love to sit down with multiple financial aid awards in front of me, because there are, forms that you can find online that allow you to translate an award into a standardized format. I actually think College Board has one on their website. And that can be helpful to basically, literally just take each award and translate it onto the same form, so that you have a gift aid versus what I call self-help. And identifying the gap.
Hello, Christina. Hi, Susan.
Hey, Mark.
Welcome back, everyone.
Grinding our gears, and we're alternating. We're doing one on the college side, one on the parent/student side. So we're back to the college side today. And here it is. It's financial aid awards not being standardized. So there's been talk for a really long time about having like a shopping sheet that everybody buys onto the same, flow and includes the same things, but it's never really happened. And some schools have agreed to that, others haven't. And so what happens for the family is they might get one financial aid award that has all of the direct costs or the billable costs, like meals, housing, tuition, student fees, and they might not include the non-billable or the non-direct costs. And then another one has everything in it. Non-billable costs being things like books and supplies, transportation, personal miscellaneous, might even include a healthcare fee or something, all that in there. And so it's like hieroglyphics for the family. Like they're trying to figure this out. How does aid award A compare to aid award B? So that's one thing, is that there's no standardization. And then it's almost worse when the aid award doesn't include certain things.
Right.
So there's a second thing where they're not included. Like sometimes a Parent Plus loan gets packaged in as if it's meeting a need when it's really a loan. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it's not even clear that it's a loan. I remember the study that was done, New America, partnered up and did a study and looked at like hundreds of these aid awards, and there was like mass confusion. So it's both the inconsistency of the awards and how they're presented, and how in some cases significant expenses might be omitted. So ladies, take this one where you want to go.
So it's not even just the actual award letter. It also comes in with the net price calculator as well. So you have difficulty even trying to estimate what these costs could be before you even apply. So I've seen calculators where you are trying to get the net cost. So with the award letters, I think there's a lot of issues because of the way that they're structured. You'll see your awards separate from your parent contribution and the student contribution, and then there's the loans, and the way that they're kind of laid out doesn't make it clear what's free money, what has to pay back, what your actual expectation to pay is, and certainly again with cost of attendance not really taking into account those unbilled costs, which are usually like transportation and personal, and sometimes the fee for health insurance, which sometimes that health insurance fee sometimes isn't even on that aid letter. That happens after you enroll. They hit you with that. So those things absolutely need to be a part of it. And the fact that it is not standardized means that when you're getting all of your aid letters in April and trying to look at everything, you're really comparing like apples to oranges to bananas and pears, because they all are structured so differently.
Susan, thoughts?
Yeah, what she said. No, I agree. When we sit with parents and kids, and I love to sit down with multiple financial aid awards in front of me, because there are forms that you can find online that allow you to translate an award into a standardized format. I actually think College Board has one on their website. And that can be helpful to basically literally just take each award and translate it onto the same form, so that you have, the gift aid versus what I call self-help.
Yeah.
And identifying the gap. I mean, for me, it's all about helping a family see what the gap is between, the aid and
Mm-hmm.
the need. Although very few financial aid awards say anything about the need, the calculated need. They don't want to
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want to be seen as not meeting it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when families really have to get on the phone and talk to a financial aid counselor to identify, because you may go into this, parents fighting for, feeling like you need to fight for more money, and or fight to have your need met, only to find out that the college really had no intention of meeting your need, and it's a sliding scale based on
Mm-hmm.
some built-in merit into the need-based process.
Mm-hmm.
Susan, I'm so glad you brought up using the cost calculators, because I want to give people some practical advice too, rather than be mad like I'm mad. And that is the practical advice, right? Like, there are these cost calculators that are some of them are quite good. Quite a few people have them out there. And it's actually really important that you use one, in my opinion, because what they will do is, once you learn what the costs are, I mean, I'm always telling people, like, 4 billable costs: meals, housing, tuition, fees; 4 non-billable: book, supplies, transportation, personal miscellaneous. And then personal miscellaneous can be quite broad, right? Toiletries, but also restaurants, concerts, lifestyle. I mean, expenses. Once you know what they are, and then what the cost comparison tools is, they make sure you don't miss something
Mm-hmm.
when you actually compare, and it's too risky to not take that chance.
Yeah.
So when you look at an aid award, like, all of those things should be somewhere. Those
Mm-hmm.
are the core components of an aid award. Now sometimes they'll call them direct and indirect, some billable, non-billable. Either those, just know those terms are, do you pay the school, or are you responsible for the expense on your own, but it's a true cost that you incur. You know, um, if a family can learn to think in that through that prism, and then use a cost calculator, then at least you'll catch it.
Yeah.
You'll
Mm-hmm.
catch it. And one thing that I always like to tell families to do for the non-billable side, I like to tell them to do their own calculations, because, like, I don't know how you did this, Christina, but I've talked to some other schools where they, like, take surveys from their families and to come up with projections for especially for personal miscellaneous, and how much
Mm-hmm.
money they're going to put down there, or even for travel. But family, let's say I have a family. Well, we're gonna use New York City. So I have a family that's interested in NYU, and the family lives in Seattle. Okay, the calculations that you see on the aid award, now, it's impossible to expect a school to customize it for every single person, and they really couldn't do it anyway, because, like, how do they know how many times you're going to go home? How do they know how many times parents are going to come? When the parents come, are they going to stay in 5-star hotels, or is the sister live there and they stay with the sister? But you need
Mm-hmm.
to really go through yourself and figure out, okay, are we going to fly back? How many times are we going to do that? Are we going to stay in hotels? What type of, like, you're better off coming up with your own
Yeah.
personalized cost. And that might be very different if you're coming from Seattle to New York versus if you're deciding to go to UW and stay right in Seattle, or even go to Reed in Portland or something. So that's kind of beyond the scope of this, but it's just a little tip. We can throw in some good tips here too,
Sure.
while we're
That's
doing
a
this.
very good suggestion, doing that,
Yeah,
Mark.
especially because we know, like, that's the big difference, right? Like, some families, they might want to come 4 times and visit their kid over the course of a year, or maybe they come and they stay for 4 or 5 days and they stay in nice hotels. Like, I mean, you can't expect a college to come up with the cost to project that. From your experience, Christina, because you oversaw this stuff, how did you come up with the calculations for the non-billable side? Did you guys base it on surveys of your students, or what did you do to
No, there are
to
there
have those numbers?
there are federal calculations and charts that you can use, that they allow you to kind of create that with, and then it just becomes a standardized thing. And travel as is really only meant to be one round trip for the student,
Hmm.
right? Not necessarily for any other family members and that sort of thing. And then it doesn't have to cover the total amount of that. I mean, can you imagine for someone who's, an international student who was on aid, like that would be like, they're very different. So I think there's a standard like chart that you can use, a federal chart. And it's the same in estimating for food and meals as well, since now there has to be an estimation for meals, even if a student is living off campus. So that's another thing too, because now you have to take into account what are groceries like, and in wherever location. So, yeah.
I've only really asked that to you and one other. I sat down with the University of Georgia, where my youngest daughter went, and with their financial aid, they do an extensive survey of their students, and then they calculate average travel, average, everything, and that's sort of how they do it. So I mean, and they're trying to do right, like they're not trying to misrepresent,
right?
But the point is, you may not be average. Like Christina brought up a great point. What about international? What about that travel? So I think, once again, everybody should just kind of do this for themselves and come up with their own numbers on that.
Their own budget, right?
And sometimes even on the billable side, right? Because on the billable side, a lot of schools have a requirement. You have to be on their 20 meal plan as freshmen, or you have to stay in the dorms, whatever. But if it's a school that doesn't have that, then your meals could be different than the projections, and your housing costs could be different than the projections. If it's not a mandatory, all freshmen have to stay in dorm and take a meal plan. So even on the billable side, it sometimes is in your best interest to take a look at, well, what are my actual costs going to be? Because I'm willing to stay in a quad or whatever. I'm not don't necessarily need to have apartment style living. And so it's just a little tip. Like, yeah. All right, ladies. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.